Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing okay out there this evening, and more importantly, staying safe. And I really say that because today has really been, in a bad way, one of the most active weather days of this year. And that's saying a lot, considering the fact we're halfway through the 12th month of the year. We've had a tornado outbreak today. We've had thunder snow in areas of the north central U.S. The blizzard conditions can still continue to still rage on areas of the plains, and we've had some flooding issues. But really, the big topic of the day has been the tornadoes. We got upgraded to a moderate risk a little bit later this morning, and then yeah, I mean, all bets were off after that. We had multiple supercells, and it was just a bad day. We had a tornado that went through New Orleans a few hours ago. And that is wild, considering the fact we just had a tornado go through areas of New Orleans back in March. That's two tornadoes in 1 year. I think there's a myth out there that tornadoes just can't do nothing to big cities and they always avoid them, but that is not true. And New Orleans has certainly been unfortunately, the bad example of that this year. So we hope that things continue to calm down overnight. I think they will. I think as of right now, there's still a couple tornado warnings out there. And tomorrow we will have some severe weather. We'll talk about that in this video, but it won't be anything comparable to what we've seen today. We've already had 2 lives lost. Hopefully we don't hear about any more. You guys tell me in the comments if you do. And, we can repair things, structural things, but we can't get back people's lives. So we're certainly and definitely praying for everybody being affected by this tonight. And I certainly, unfortunately, it looks like this definitely overachieved in a bad way. So in the beginning of this video, though, we're going to discuss the Arctic air mass. It's going to enter the lower 48. This is going to plunge frigid temperatures into areas just in time for Christmas. We're going to talk about the possibilities. Is there any kind of possibilities for a white Christmas, for any winter weather? A lot of people are starting to wonder. People are chattering about it. But listen, this is really starting to lock in. All ensembles agree, all model guidance agree. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the winter storm that's going to be cranking up overnight for the Northeast. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. And we're certainly praying for you folks in the Deep South tonight. As these tornadoes continue to roll through, unfortunately. But let's talk about this really quick, and not really quick. We're going to talk about this for about half the video. This is the latest from today, December the 14th, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This takes us through the 20th through Christmas Eve, the 24th. Much below average temperatures are favored in this almost purple area right here. What we do know is this Arctic air is going to drop into the northern plains first, and then drop as far south as Texas, and then ooze east. And then the jet down here becomes very active potentially. We know it jolts south. It gets buckled south, and then we watch for pieces of energy down here. And then that's when we look at the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. It shows the chances are a little bit higher for below average precipitation. But guys, watch this Gulf moisture. I'm telling you, don't hold me to it, but this is certainly one of those patterns where areas really far south could potentially get winter weather. It's kind of one of the things where it's such a deep shot of cold air that it suppresses energy into the Gulf of Mexico and doesn't allow these low pressures to really track really close to land. Therefore, precipitation might just make it just inland. And then that might, for example, a good system like that is January 3rd, 2018. Areas like Charleston, Savannah, got all that snow. A few days after New Year's into 2018. I know a lot of you folks remember that was the last snow you guys got. A lot of folks in the Deep South got. But this is potentially one of those patterns. And you look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, the 22nd through Christmas all the way to the 28th, much below average temperatures shift a little bit further east. You compare this with this, you notice how it moves east. This is cold coming. And I really think for the immediate southeast, mid-Atlantic, deep south, this comes 48 hours just before Christmas Day. And I really think Christmas Eve will be very cold for a lot of folks too. For sure, the further northwest you live, the quicker earlier in time the cold air gets to you guys. Sorry, I'm making this video a little bit late, so I'm a little bit more tired than I normally am. See, I can't even get my grammar right, so forgive me if I slur my words, get my words mixed up. It's a little bit later. To me, 8 o'clock is probably when a lot of people might be eating dinner time, but to me, eight o'clock is like 10:30 to me. So I definitely go to sleep a lot earlier than most people. But 8 to the 14 day precipitation outlook here. You know, it almost looks like the 6 to 10 day temperature precipitation outlook here, but it's a little bit different. You notice the chances for above average precipitation is right along the coastline, but it's not very high. And then the areas where you just don't have any color, that's near normal. You just got an equal chance. So we watch for this cold air to kind of intercept with some of this moisture. And we just got to watch this. So let's look at the European and how this unfolds. And we start off by, let's just go on and go all the way to Sunday morning of this weekend. You got a ridge building into Alaska. We call that a negative EPO. We got a sustained negative NAO that's blocking up here in Greenland. And then we already got troughing down to the lower 48, but this is the area we watch. This is literally a piece of the polar vortex that gets kind of shunted south. And as we're moving forward here in time, look, you see these areas right here, the more warmer colors, that is higher heights. That is basically ridging, building into the west. We call that a positive PNA, when ridging's in the west and troughing most of the time is in the east in this case. So as this happens, this ridging won't allow this trough to dig west. Like maybe we were thinking had a possibility to happen maybe sometime yesterday overnight, if that makes sense. But this ridge into the west, into the Pacific, building all the way to Alaska, that negative EPO dislodges this cold air, a cross-polar flow. Really gets shunted into the lower 48 here, and then some big-time cold air as we get into midway next week gets thrown into the northern plains first, the Midwest, north central U.S., the plains, the Ohio Valley, and then look at this. This comes right on top of the eastern U.S., the southeast, the deep south, and this is a lot of cold air. And then you stop it right here, and then the jet stream is jolted south right here. You watch for the southern jet right here to really get fired up here, and we watch for some precipitation to potentially get going into the Gulf of Mexico to link up with some of this cold air. Will it happen? We're not quite sure yet. But we'll compare all the ensembles here in a second, and I will tell you how incredibly consistent they are with one another. And listen, the models have done nothing over the last 24 hours, really the 48 hours, but double down on this pattern change. And we keep inching it closer in time, the more confidence severely and really begins to grow that this is going to happen. It's already most likely going to happen. So let's look at the temperatures here, right? So what does the temperatures look like? I'll start off Sunday afternoon. Here comes the cold air starting to come out of northwest areas of the U.S. Really, it's into southwest Canada. Cold air begins to get dislodged. And we'll stop this Wednesday morning, negative 10 to 15 degrees below zero. And then watch how this cold air gets a move on. This is the Arctic front that begins to drop down, almost like a blue northern type event. But look at this in Montana, negative 30, negative 35 degrees for next Thursday morning, about 6 days out from today. And then you can look at the Arctic boundary as we're getting into about a week from today, moving through Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri. I mean, it's incredible. Really, it's going to be just one of those fronts that you're going to feel it when it comes through potentially. We'll stop this 2 days before Christmas. This front makes it all the way to the southeast. And these are low temperatures, potentially just off one run, the GFS, for 8 days from now. Well, about 7.5 days from now, in the teens in Tennessee, teens, single digits in northwest Arkansas, single digits in Missouri, Illinois, negative temperatures showing up. And then there's a line right here. When you get north of Kansas, Missouri, it gets into the negatives. And then we go on and move it up another 24 hours. And look at this. These are highs for Christmas Eve, just off one run of the GFS, negatives in the Midwest and the northern plains and then the north central U.S. And these are high temperatures almost high temperatures. It's a few hours away from the actual high temperatures. But you're in the 20s in Texas. You're only in the 20s in the deep south. You're only in the teens in Tennessee and Arkansas. And these are around high temperatures generally give or take an hour or a few degrees. Look at the Ohio Valley. You're only getting into the single digits to negatives. And even look in South Carolina, 30s for highs. And then you get into Christmas Eve, into Christmas morning, teens, single digits. Now, this is just one run, but it tells you the real potential. Look at this freeze all the way down to Florida. And then potential high temperatures, 20s, 30s. Now, this is going to moderate. Do I think it's going to be this cold? I don't think so. But you never know when there's going to be a historic event. Now, you look at the European. What does the European show? Here comes that Arctic front. Same situation. If you're confused what day we're at, look up here, December 20th. Then we're getting to December 21st. Here comes this front. Look how the European surges it down. I mean, you're in the teens, almost single digits in the panhandle of Florida, and you're in the 70s in one part of Texas, which is nothing unheard of. It seems like this happens once a year in Texas. But look at the front moving through the Ohio Valley for next Thursday, about a week from today, about 8 days from today. Look at all these negative numbers showing up here. And watch this front blast through the southeast. This is Friday morning, next Friday morning, Christmas Eve, if you will. I mean, just look at the gradient on this front. I mean, teens in these areas, single digits. And then we get all the way to Christmas Eve morning. And, I mean, it is very cold. Not quite as cold as the GFS, but this is pretty darn cold for the European. And then, that's as far out as it goes. Euro goes 10 days out, all the way to Christmas Eve morning. But this is the thing that I'm watching. A lot of people are wondering, okay, yada, 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 all about the cold. That's cool. But what about the precipitation, Mitch? What about the snow? Well, I'm watching a couple areas, all right? So first is this area later, about midway through this weekend, which there was a lot of chatter about, but I think this is going to be suppressed. And there's still just marginal cold air. You would need this to trend pretty far up to link up with some cold air. This isn't the true core of our cold air. Our cold air is still coming from Canada down here. So if you're confused what date it is, look up here because I'm really bad about mentioning it sometimes. But as we're going here in time, here it comes. The cold air begins to drop down. There's a little system that tries to get going here, but it gets kind of suppressed and pushed back down to the Gulf. Some light snow still in these areas, but, not a whole lot. This system kind of flies, just hits Florida, but then the cold air begins to drop down. And with it, you're going to have some kind of moisture. It's an Arctic air mass that tries to squeeze out as much moisture as possible. And so is there going to be a system along the actual front? I don't know if there's going to be a system, but I certainly think there'll be energy, meaning there'll be precipitation and a lot of snow kind of just flying around with this Arctic boundary. And this could be very, very dry snow, very fine particles, if you will, almost like powder, pixie dust, if you will, flying around in this very, very cold temperatures. It won't be a wet snow, I tell you that. But we watch for some kind of system. Look at this low pressure already trying to form, but it's getting pushed away. But one thing I watch is the cold air, and this is one run of the GFS, but I am watching a system around Christmas, give or take a day, either way. But here it comes. Here comes the cold air. Here comes some moisture in the Gulf. Here comes a piece of energy right here. And one thing that we will begin to talk about, and we talked about it a lot last winter, if you guys have been with me since then, is basically these 500 millibar vortices, these pieces of energy that have to connect to really bring a storm together. We're not going to talk about that until we have to, until we actually have a storm to track. But right now we don't. But we're going up into Christmas Eve morning. You got snow in North Carolina and South Carolina. But one thing I want you to look at here is look how close it is. You got a low pressure that tracks right off the coast. And there is so much cold air in this area. You're snowing in the Gulf of Mexico. This is an incredibly cold air mass. It's so cold that it suppresses the storm system, but it's snowing right off the Carolina coastline. Now, there's going to be a lot of people who listen to this part of the video is going to be like, yo, the guy on YouTube said it's going to be snowing off the Carolina coastline Christmas Eve. Please don't. This is one model run, and by the time we get into the midnight run, it's going to look different. The reason I'm showing you this, just like the reason I show you any long-range models, is because I do think there's going to be a system around this time frame. But how sure are we? I'm not sure. The European isn't in range of it. But you look at the European, and it only goes out 10 days. But, we see that system right there, and we're in the 18Z now, so we need to go back to the 12Z. This is kind of in between right here. We're in the 20th, between the first trough and then the second Arctic air mass is going to dip through. what happens here? Well, the European likes the idea of a low pressure flying around the base of the trough. And then it pops off a low pressure right here ahead of the cold air, but there's not enough cold air in place yet. And this low pressure eventually begins to slow down, probably due to the blocking up here. It links up with this cold air, and you have some kind of massive mid-Atlantic and northeast snow a day before Christmas Eve, and then the cold air filters in. But you never know. This only goes out to Christmas Eve morning. You could have another system brewing down here. It's still far out. It seems like we've been talking about this for 10 to 14 days, and we have, but we're really just now getting in some reliable territory and models, but there's some incredible agreement. European ensembles, ridging in the west, troughing in the east. Solid signal. GEFS ensembles, ridging in the west, troughing in the east. Solid signals. The Canadian ensembles, same thing. Beautiful looking pattern if you like cold and the potential for winter weather in the east, guys. It really is. You look at temperatures compared to average. In this pink area, that is upwards to 30 degrees below average. Look how this oozes. And if you're wondering about the date, here it is. Look how it comes into the central and eastern U.S. as we're getting right a couple days before Christmas. And man, I'm telling you, this is going to be the coldest Christmas in some time. I know a lot of people had a very, very cold Christmas day 2 years ago. I think we only hit like 35 degrees here in Columbia. I don't know if we're going to beat that. The thing with that air mass, it was very fleeting. It warmed up very quick. This air mass, I think, is going to have some longevity to it. It's going to be just different. There's going to be something different about it. I just got a gut feeling. So that's all I got on that. So hopefully that helps you guys out. But some exciting times if you like cold and winter weather coming up. My folks, with the severe weather, we got a tornado warning, unfortunately, just southwest of Tallahassee, where some storms are starting to move into this area. Listen, all through the night tonight, if you're in the panhandle of Florida, even up here in this region, you're going to have a risk for a tornado. It's an outside risk, but anywhere's an outside risk until you get hit, right? But you got tornado warnings southwest of Montgomery. And looks like a lot of this is kind of shielded in rain, so you're not going to see it coming. But you see all these cells right here, guys, south of Pensacola in the Gulf of Mexico. These are danger zone right here. You don't like the look at these. There's probably multiple water spouts out here in the Gulf of Mexico. And listen, I mean, the ingredients, whether it's overnight, in the middle of the day or not, are supportive all night right in this region. So, please, if you're in this area, have a way to get alerts, guys. Have a way to get alerts. There's going to be nasty weather all night. And it's really unfortunate that this ended up panning out pretty much a worst-case scenario. It really has. So, but as we're working through the overnight hours, these storms will continue to work through, as you can tell. And, they're moving through the areas. So, we just got to figure this out, guys, and just hope that it's not that bad overnight tonight. But we'll stop at around midnight tonight. Storms getting really close to Tallahassee, but they continue. And then as we're getting into tomorrow morning, let's hope that the worst is over. I think we're still got a few hours into the overnight hours, but I really think that as we get into tomorrow, things will begin to quiet down. But I think we will have some severe weather into Florida probably tomorrow, more just a way of a line of storms. So. Tornado warning as of right now still ongoing in these areas. It might expire here in about 30 minutes, but then another one might get reissued. Flood watches into these areas. So please be careful tonight, guys. My folks up here in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, we got these ice storm warnings up right here. Winter storm warnings in the pink. Winter weather advisories in this kind of other shade of purple right here. Winter storm watches up here. We're expecting a lot of ice. This ice will continue to move through. Will begin to move through in a few hours. It's going to be kind of a tricky setup here. We're going to have to go to this run right here. Here we go. We can only go through 8 hours. But listen, I really think the epicenter of the heaviest ice will be right here in western Maryland, this far western two counties of Maryland, this area of West Virginia, and then these western sections of Virginia. And some areas are going to get well over a half an inch of ice. And that is, there's a well-known storm chaser up here. His name's Peter. I think he's going to be storm chasing this ice storm. So it's going to be interesting to see some pictures and videos out of this area. but there's going to be a lot of power outages in this area, which isn't good because we have an Arctic air mass on the way. So let's hope that if there's any power outages in this area, which I do think it's going to happen, it's inevitable with these ice storms, let's hope that they can get the power grid back up before this Arctic blast comes through. But this is a lot of ice. And now it's trending even higher for areas of Pennsylvania. If you're wondering what this pink is, that's more so sleet that the HRRR model is trying to show is going to fall. And I really do think eventually this will work into an atmosphere that supports more sleet and snow, which is better than the pink, which is freezing rain. But this will continue to move through. This takes us all the way to about midday tomorrow. And it's still freezing rain in these areas. How much ice can we see? The National Weather Service almost has 3/4 of an inch of ice now in western Maryland, but widespread 1/4 to a 1/2 inch ice totals, even a glaze in Washington, D.C., where you have a winter weather advisory. Let's see if you still got it. Yep, you do. So it's going to be icy tomorrow for sure in these areas. The rest of the Northeast, an update for you guys. Like I said, not a massive storm, but as we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, the snow begins to move into western areas of New York State. It's covering up most of Pennsylvania and the colder sections right here. And then as we're getting into tomorrow night, in the middle of the night, in the higher elevation favored areas, it's going to be snow in the valleys here in New York State, probably rain. This is just doesn't have a lot of cold air to work with up here. So if you're in those higher hills where it's 1,000 to 1,500 feet up, that might make a difference between an area that's maybe only 500 feet up. It's going to be just kind of one of those systems. The major cities along the I-95 corridor, you're not going to see any snow from this. So this moves through, and we're going to take this all the way out to about midday Friday. And, of course, the snow is just starting to move into Maine. But snow between now and the duration of this event, there's still going to be areas that's going to pick up 1.5 feet of snow. So me saying it's not going to be a huge storm is kind of a lie. But, for the I-95 corridor, nothing. But these higher elevations certainly could see 1.5 feet of snow. It's certainly up here in the higher countries of all these states, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York State, Maine. You guys are going to see a lot of snow. It's going to be a beautiful white Christmas for you guys, like most of the time it is. But this is really going to reinforce the snowpack. But we'll keep you updated on this, give you another update in the morning. But that's all I got. Stay safe tonight in the Deep South, please. And have a way to get alerts, guys. There's so many ways to get alerts. There's YouTubers out there that go live, and there's radios, your phones go crazy when you have a tornado warning. Sometimes some of them do. I know mine do, but stay safe tonight. Praying for you folks, and God bless all y'all.